Hello everyone, it's GigaBeef here, and today BSG have rolled back patch 14.1. Why did they do this? Well, if you didn't see the issues that had come with it, basically Streets was running at about 50% of the regular frames for most people, and they were quite low to begin with. The scav matching bug has come back, making it impossible to get into Streets as a player scav. Pistol recoil got updated so that quick shots were shooting over the top of the iron sights, and there were a bunch of armor related issues as well. BSG themselves have stated after the patch installation, critical issues and bugs were discovered, leading us to this decision. The content of patch 14.1 will be released in the future updates after adjustments with consideration of community feedback. The key part of this video is not to complain, as yes, it's not great, but BSG have 100% done the right thing here by rolling it back. So we're going to focus on the last part of the message with consideration of community feedback, of which my small part is going to be laid out here. I spent the morning testing some of the obvious changes within the armor adjustments that they had made, and some of these were very odd. As I documented in my last armor testing video, removable plates specifically were not providing any damage reduction when a bullet penetrated through them. This led to 366 APM one-shotting class 4 plates and class 5 as well if they did manage to roll a pen on the armor, which was at about a 20% chance. Against the Ulay though, this did not happen because it's all inbuilt armor rather than replaceable plates. So when we tested it this morning, imagine my surprise when we discovered that plates were indeed giving damage reduction, i.e. APM won't one-shot the class 4 variety now, but soft armor wasn't giving any reduction instead, so the Ulay would now get one shot by APM. I think it's pretty clear to say here that both soft armor and replaceable plates should both have damage mitigated when a bullet passes through them, as otherwise this leads to some weird outcomes, and having it there makes armor layering more worthwhile, which I think is a good thing. Next, another situation that is kind of strange is APSX versus the unarmored head. APSX ammo for the MP7 deals exactly 35 damage, and you can see this if you fire it into an arm or a leg, but as soon as you hit anywhere on the head, it's a straight one shot. Now, just for the record, I actually don't mind this as a mechanic because I have always believed that if a round penetrates a helmet, the target should die, and I don't want to hear any realism arguments about this time that some guy survived a shot to the head because it bounced off his skull or whatever. At this point, I strongly feel that we should be striving to make Tarkov's ballistic systems more consistent rather than less so. But outside of this, the fact that it happens at all is a symptom of something going on with hitboxes. My strong suspicion has always been that high pen bullets interact with multiple head hitboxes as they pass through, especially as I got this kill in testing with a nape shot. As you can see, I'm directly straight on to the other player, and more than 35 damage is being dealt somehow, despite it not doing this on arms, legs, thorax or stomach. Fortunately, we were completely unable to replicate this behavior on the thorax hitbox, so no instances of 70 damage being applied to the target, so perhaps this is actually okay. The only other multi-hits that we could get with APSX was from one leg into another and from one arm into the other arm. So extending out the head hitbox stuff, we tested some layered armor over the face and found something interesting. You can layer 3 pieces over the eyes with a class 3 face shield, a class 2 death shadow mask and a pair of class 1 condors, and we used green tracer which only has 14 pen to shoot down the face shield until it finally let a bullet through, at which point it instantly killed the wearer. This was quite remarkable because the chance of penning the face shield despite its lower durability, and then the mask, and then the glasses is actually shrinkingly small. Weirdly, this did do damage to both the mask and the glasses though, but seemingly bypassed the roll to actually check if these were getting penned before applying damage to the PMC. Well, maybe we were lucky. I mean, possibly, but we placed the same face shield over a new mask and glasses with exactly the same result in the same test raid. Instant death with armor damage to the mask and the glasses again. However, when we retested it with just the mask and the glasses but with no face shield, the combination tanked multiple shots as we would expect from class 2 armor against 14 pen ammo. The most probable reason for this is that somehow the damage is being applied to the PMC irrespective of the pen chances to the layers underneath. There's clearly something wrong with the logic. Each armor piece should be dealt with in turn, applying damage and pen reduction to the bullet before moving on to the next armor piece. The ordering clearly matters, with the PMC's head hitbox being right at the end, only applying actual damage once all of the armor layers have been dealt with. In terms of layered armor over the thorax instead, we saw before that the damage mitigation from plates was actually working in some fashion, but not for soft armor. We tested M856A1 against a variety of class 4 plates on its own, class 4 with class 2 behind, and class 4 with class 3 behind. There was little difference between the tests except for the class 3 backing being more effective at stopping the round from penetrating in the first couple of hits, which you would expect especially against a bullet with just about pen capacity against class 4 like M856A1. But otherwise, the main takeaway was that the damage mitigation through the plates, instead of being a fixed amount like it was originally when patch 14 dropped, was now scaling like it used to with plate durability. This is a win in my opinion and should be kept. So ultimately, what do I think we should do from here, and what changes would I like to see personally? Firstly, I think that the headshot stuff is actually working as I would like. If a bullet hits the head hitbox properly, and by that I mean either an unarmored area or a penetration on a helmet, the target should die, as they currently do post the hitbox rework. Whether this property should also extend to AI entities like raiders, rogues and bosses is a little bit more questionable. Raiders, rogues and guards I think are probably fair game for this, but as much as I want to say make them all the same, practically it might make the actual boss characters themselves a little bit too easy to kill. There was some talk on Twitter of how the inability to penetrate through the thorax and stomach now could potentially signify the removal of fragmentation, as fragments require a penetration to function. But at this point, I think we should just formally get rid of fragmentation altogether. Few players actually like the system, and there's nothing really engaging or immersive about it. Its main effect on the game is to confuse players and make the after-action report difficult to read and explain, as well as making combat more inconsistent, which in the post-patch 14 world is really not helpful. Armor layering mechanics need a really long and hard look at to make sure that they are functioning as intended. Each piece of armor, whether a plate, soft insert, glasses or helmet, should apply their own mitigation properties in turn, in the correct order as they are present on the PMC, and finally apply damage to the player once all of these calculations are done. There was also some talk of plate ricochets as well that I saw around on social media. I haven't been able to simulate this in testing, or at least not accurately determine when a ricochet is actually happening. But if there are going to be some, then they should really be listed on the armor plates themselves. As an aside, I'm not sure why the ricochets for helmets have now been hidden, so to speak, behind the integrated sections for regular helmets, because they are still happening for sure, but now we just can't see what those ratings are anymore. This got me thinking about another point. I do wish that we got more detail on how the systems that get implemented are supposed to function, because especially the testing community is often unsure how to interpret the results that we see. For example, it was commonly thought of, myself included, that the zero blunt damage from plates was a feature and not a bug, as it's broadly realistic if soft armor is present behind, but given that this was tweaked, then I guess not. All it would take is a short rundown of the broad mechanics in words, and this would go a mile to help assist the understanding of what the intention is, which would really help us help BSG achieve their goals. Finally, on armor, with all the changes in patch 14, we could really do with a better post-raid report. I still get so many questions from players asking why this slug or that ammo killed them when they were wearing class 5, not realizing that they got shot in the hitbox around the plate area even though it said chest. Some way of signifying what actually happened on your death would be extremely useful, especially with the added complexity that we have now. Something like a PMC indicator where you have a little cross where you got shot or something, maybe even an armor identifier so that you could see whether the plate got pent or whether it went through the soft armor. Anything like this would be definitely helpful. Alongside that, I do wish that the modding screen also showed you the plate hitbox when you mouse over one of the inserts. This already happens for the weapon modding screen and would help to alleviate some of the questions about what does this armor actually protect, and I don't think this would break immersion at all because your PMC should really know what the plates look like and how they fitted into the slot when you put them in there. The very last thing I want to mention is about pistol recoil, because this was one of the big complaints with the latest update. It was changed in 14.1 to be quite a bit worse than it was before, and the general vibe is that the pistol recoil was fine previously. Some people did think that they were a little bit overpowered for the price due to the low recoil, but I would argue that this applies to guns like the STM2, but no one ever uses those. Semi-auto weapons in pistol calibers can afford to be slightly overtuned if you ask me, and I'd honestly rather them be how they were in the original patch 14, even if the recoil was probably a little low for the overall feel of pistols in general. If anything, they could have probably had a small tweak to the actual recoil numbers perhaps, rather than drastically changing their actual recoil model so that the bullets were firing over the top of the iron sights when you fired too quickly, which I just don't think feels very good. So do let me know down in the comments with any thoughts of your own. I do think that given this rollback has happened, this is another chance to forge the things that we want out of the system, so all feedback is useful before the final trigger is pulled on the update. A final shout out to go and check out the new channel album Waterfalls that just released on Spotify, which helps to support what I do, as well as providing copyright-free music for the community. As usual, a big thanks to all my patrons, and as always, have fun in your raids.